Today, I thank you so much for sticking along on this crazy little monorail ride through my noodly little brain that explores lots of melded metaverses. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity and space to hear me out, and hopefully you're having a fun time along the way. Today is a very different episode in this season. Each season, I've already planned through season 4. We have all kinds of good stuff coming up. Like next season, we're going to focus on Animaniacs, and I'm going to talk about teacher ed and the actual tools that we can use in our classrooms and give you the real tips and tricks. So that's coming with Based in Animaniacs as our unit theme. That's like 6th grade. This year, we're in 5th grade. In 5th grade, little bitties, beginning of middle school, have to dip your toe in the water. So I'm going with Mr. Rogers. The theme here is Mr. Rogers this entire season, and we just want to get you used to the neighborhood. A little preview also, season 3, we are in 7th grade, and we are going to be focusing on none other than Stranger Things. Lots of great characters coming into that. And the final season 4, yes, this will end in season 4. It's coming. I want to give you a bit of finality there. Season 4, The Hunger Games. Oh yes, 8th grade, The Hunger Games. And that one, we are going to get really into the nitty-gritty. I have to build you up the mountain and then help to lead you back down again. I'm just here to spark some ideas, and perhaps today's discussion will be sparky for you. And so today I'm in a different place where I've recorded all of my other podcasts over to you. I am now sitting in a different part of my house. This is the lounge of my house, and it's got a Miss Pac-Man table that I've wanted my whole life, and lots of books, and of course my trusty friends in arms, Steve and Ralphie. Poor Ralphie's having a little trouble these days. Think some good thoughts from a boy. His age is giving him some troubles and forgetting where he's at sometimes. Ralphie, we love you, buddy. Thanks for being my heart. So today is a great day. I have a real sense of peace and joy and brotherly love, right? And sisterly and everybody else. Dog love, all of it. So I'm feeling really joyful today. And if ever I was going to have kind of a religious sort of day, Sunday's a good one. I was born on a Sunday. And October 1st, 1978, and I was a month late to the day. And I was supposed to be born September 1st, but I was still cooking. And back in 1978, my poor mother was forced to wait a whole month, go home, come back in a month. And after noodling, interestingly enough, I am born of noodles after all. It's all in my little dirt garden. She had shrimp scampi, which I love to this day. And apparently, whatever reason, that was the WD-40 that got me out. A month late to the day, now that would never happen. But I was born on October 1st, the day of Jimmy Carter and Julie Andrews, which was a great start to my life. And my middle name was Marie, so Mary Poppins, all the goodness there. And I think Jimmy Carter now kind of to me represents a politician who had a good heart. And I think we think of him that way, and his takeaway is that in his old booby age, we love him, the cuteness of him in his overalls and working on houses and trying to better other people's lives in his retirement. I take retirement very seriously. I think keeping an active mind is what keeps us healthy. I think about my family and how to keep them healthy. But I think Jimmy Carter's a really great example of living in a spiritual way. He is a man of religion. He is of deep faith, and I respect that so much. I really do. And he believes in living in the eyes of Jesus in his particular point of view. And I respect that a lot. When I was telling you my origin story, I was talking a lot about Daisy the dog and the Basset Hound. And she taught me to stand up. In doing so, she was my first underhand teacher because I didn't even realize I was learning to stand. I was so caught up in looking at Mr. Rogers' red cardigan. Like I said, they were both my dual teachers at the exact same time, and that is my first memory. But today is that Sunday. Today's the day of rest. Today's the day of reflection, and I believe in the power of reflection. And I think it's important. Sometimes you got to change your physical environment to do. So that's why I'm hanging out here. And this room has lots of street signs. And I love street signs. I think they're overt, obviously. And I just collect them. I think they're really interesting. I love looking at the way they're designed and things like that. Lots of street signs and old funky things in here and goofy stuff. And a leg lamp, of course. And Miss Pac-Man. I'm going to be a little bit reflective today, and we're going to talk about spirituality. Now, I'm not talking about religion, okay? Please help me out. We're going above that. We're going way super high. We're talking about the core concepts of spirituality and living a equitable life, an honest life, and a life of service. That's what we're talking about. So the really big takeaway. And because this season is dedicated to Mr. Rogers, I would like to come back to the beginning as always, and it's always a very good place to start. And looking at Mr. Rogers, he was my shiny object. That red cardigan, just like a bull, had me in. And I didn't realize I was learning that I wanted to know more, but Daisy was the slick, sly one who taught me how to stand up and do something I really needed to do. She was keeping me in social skills, whereas Mr. Rogers was teaching me about spirituality and how to think as a critical thinker from my first memory. So I started this world with my first memory critically analyzing Mr. Rogers. So I can't help it. I got the can't help us. I'd like to talk about Mr. Rogers and why Mr. Rogers is a diamond in the rough. And to put yourself for a minute in the inside-out brain of Mr. Rogers. We're going to do this a lot coming up. And I think it's really fun. I try to present ideas that could be engaging and fun to help you noodle around and enjoy that process. That keeps your brain busy and keeps you active. It keeps you from losing yourself. And that is the core of spirituality, is to know who you are. Mufasa, remember who you are, right? That's a God-type character. And children's books, of course. My librarian self wants to say that children's books and movies and things along the way certainly helped me in my early childhood to understand things. The power of the lion. The lion in symbology. Kids get symbols. They may not get nonverbal communication, but they definitely get symbols. So the lion, of course, is a godlike creature, right? So in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, of course, the background of the writer is that this writer wanted to create, C.S. Lewis wanted to create religious-based learning for kids, and so created this metaverse of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where Aslan was the godlike creature. Now, Lion King, Disney, always Disney. Think about Disney, because Disney has such influence on our childhood. So put yourself in the brain of Inside Out, little Walt Disney. Lion King, although that was past his time, but those who carried the torch for him created Lion King, and of course Mufasa played a godlike creature. Now, I love, and I'm so excited, that the new Lion King movie about Mufasa's backstory is coming out soon, and I will be like the first in the theater with my popcorn ready to go. I love lions. I've always wanted a Lion King cell, Pride Rock, the whole thing. It's not really Simba being held up, but more of just Mufasa looking out and processing. I would love that animation cell somewhere. We learn a lot about spirituality from the media. And let's go back to Mr. Rogers. We're putting ourselves in the head of Mr. Rogers for a minute. And Mr. Rogers taught spirituality. He had his doctorate of theology, and he was fascinated. His rabbit hole, which is a happy place to go, is fun and engaging because he loved pre-K. And pre-K, he realized the importance of the pre-K program way long ago. Talk about visionary. That was his Walt Disney genius, is that he knew that if he could help teach pre-K and teach core values, that maybe we can make a big difference, because he understood child development and the process of how little brains develop, how they cook. And he knew that those little ages right there, all kinds of little sparks were happening. And he thought, if I could just bring some good to them, maybe they'll have a good start in life. Pretty valiant. He was not a sniper. He didn't kill anybody. No. But he did go in front of Congress and make a pitch about that, saying, we really need to do something. Brave, right? And he's the one that said, all you need is to be brave. Because little kids get bravery, right? Kids are brave. They're just built in. They're like, let's do it, because the whole world is brand new to them. What do they got to lose? They know they're safe by their family and those who protect them, their pets, their magical creatures, whatever you want to call them, and their family and their school and everybody around them. They learn who safe people are. We learn that early on. Safety is important, core value. And he gave us a place with a magical world, a metaverse, and puppets, and Daniel Tiger, and all these good things to get the symbology right for the pre-K world. So his Inside Out console. Imagine the think tank there. What emotions would run Mr. Rogers? What would they wear? What would the console look like? And what would it look like in the office itself? You notice how in Inside Out, the parents of Riley, and I haven't even mentioned Riley yet. We got to talk about Riley later. We will. And I think they did a great job giving a pretty good overview so far, but we'll dig further. But in any case, her family, when you go and see their brains, they look a lot different. And in the first movie, some of the outtakes at the end, stick around for that, you'll see the dog, like a dog brain and a cat brain and a teenage boy brain and all that stuff. But Mr. Rogers' brain, I guess it probably would look like his neighborhood. I'm sure Daniel Tiger would be. I mean, he already created it for us. He showed us without CGI, with just some puppets and people helping out, building. I mean, it took a neighborhood. He was right. The neighborhood concept, spot on, sir. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Because he taught us that we need a neighborhood. It takes a village. We learned that. We learned that we have to look to the helpers and those people that will guide us in the right direction. He kept us away from Bowser's, but we didn't even know they existed yet because we were just little, right? We're just little bitty kids, little puppy children. That was a big deal. And Mr. Rogers was powerful, very powerful. And later on, when I was an 8th grade teacher, I taught an assignment that I thought was extremely important. And it dug me into the concept of lions and spirituality and my Lion King poster in my classroom and all this stuff. And I just noodle until people call it overthinking, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's processing and noodling. So noodling is a safer term, the Mr. Rogers cardigan term. And I was thinking about the concept of spirituality and lions and why I like lions so much, because I think they represent a godlike creature for me. And so my 8th graders, I thought, we got to deal with spirituality because y'all need checked on something in the world that's a little bigger than you, and it's beyond your pay grade to know everything there is to know about your game because the big game maker in the sky is working on it. You do not rush the big game maker in the sky, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you want to give it, whatever religion you want to tie it to. Top of the mountain thoughts here, people. Yeah. 8th graders need a check from time to time. Check them. I just call it checking. It's like what coaches do. They check. It's not correcting. It's not punishing. It's not anything negative. It's just checking. Hey, wait, whoa, wake up. Ice bath. Yeah. So we can check people and try to get them back on the right path. Mr. Rogers was wonderful about this. He was so kind and patient, and he talked about racism and community and all these wonderful things so subtly and so masterfully written in a tapestry that we just experienced his world and we didn't question it. Can I juxtapose this thought for a second? That he's the lion. I'm noodling about this idea for an assignment. He's a lion characteristic type person. He's a Mufasa. Lions. How can I move lions into wordplay? Oh, for English class. Okay, I got it. George Ella Lyons. Yeah, last name, right? Wordplay. Love that. Had a good time last podcast talking about wordplay. Yeah, George Ella Lyons wrote a poem called Where I'm From. Fantastic. Origin stories. If it's easier to present it as origin stories in middle school, great. Where I'm From. It's a fantastic assignment. The kids had a great time doing it. 8th graders were totally engaged, and whoa, it's poetry. Rap is poetry. Fantastic. That's why I mentioned it earlier. But now, Where I'm From. The poem, and please go investigate accordingly, but the poem talks about where you're from and some of the characteristics and sensory things that come from your past. I would challenge you to take a look at that and maybe write it with your family, like you each write one, and share it at dinner or something like that. I think that would be a really cool thing for you guys to do. The power of the lion spirit. And lions have all kinds of fierce predatory power. King of the jungle, but is that what they really are? Was that Mufasa? Was that the picture of Mufasa? Take off your glasses and put on a new pair of glasses and look at Mufasa as purity and truth and honesty, and angels are near him. He becomes this angel creature and a teacher, even more so in his afterlife. Media-wise, Mr. Rogers and all of his talk about being kind. Later on in life, I mentioned earlier about Watership Down. You're starting to see the looping of my teaching because you want to just keep bringing up stuff to give it a new meaning. You hear it enough times, you hear it 3 times usually, and you can change the meaning of a word. Bowser's like to do this to distract us, to pivot into the negative. Let's repivot to the positive. We don't get to do that very much, and maybe that'll get us out of our rut. We don't want to live in dystopia. Bowserland, dystopian, no, not my choice. I choose to live in the light. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Later on, as I'm looking into media and trying to figure out what my spirituality base is, and my family did a great job of exposing me to different world religions, things like that. Anne Frank exposed me to the concept of other world religions like Judaism. I lived in the South Florida area, so we had a lot of kids from Jewish families, and I thought that was super cool, and the culture was really interesting anyway, so I got to learn more about it. And so Anne Frank became really important to me, and learning other world religions as well in the 5th grade. So middle school began. We weren't in middle school then. We didn't start till 7th, but nowadays, to put it into that lens, 5th grade would have been middle school. So I really got into the movie Watership Down. And warning, if you put a nowadays lens on things like Watership Down or even Mr. Rogers, think about now. Would Mr. Rogers' method work today? Or would Bowser start to assume that maybe he's up to something nefarious? So would a character like a Mufasa, a lion of sorts, it could be a lion if you want, that's fine, animals are great, but someone of that spirit, a man like my brother, he's an elementary school teacher, and he loved it. He was great with them. We need more positive male role models in our life, and those that are out there, we appreciate you so much. And Mr. Rogers was my first male role model besides my dad. And he was a teacher. My dad was a school principal. So everything was consistent. I was like, okay, teaching's the way to go. That's how we learned. That was a good thing. But Watership Down taught me a big lesson. Warning. This movie is PG. It's from back in the day. Don Bluth. We talked about Bright Eyes, the Simon and Garfunkel song, absolutely melting me into a puddle, because that to me is a very spiritual song. It's happy cry. It's I don't know what emotion I'm at. I'm all of them at once. And because it just gets me. It pulls the rug out from under me about spirituality sometimes. That movie talks about the concept of creation in the sense of animals. I will not pronounce the names because it's complicated. They have their own little language in their bunny metaverse, but it's a story, a novel about rabbits. And the cartoon version from way back when in the 70s is the one you got to watch. But please watch this. This is the warning. Please watch this before you show it to your kids, because like I said, if you put things into a now state of mind, like I was trying to show you a minute ago with what would people think of Mr. Rogers now, what would people think of a Jesus-like character now, would they be accepted? I don't know. I'm not here to answer that. That's way beyond my pay grade and way further up the mountain. I'm checking myself to say I'm not supposed to know that stuff. But what if? Okay, what would the emotions be in someone like that's brain, Mufasa's brain? To continue, Watership Down talked about God as being like the sun, center of the universe. And the animation is really interesting because visually it made a lot of sense in my brain. But the warning is that this movie is rated PG because it's very bloody. It's a bloody movie. Don Bluth was known for being a little more harsh and sociological and a little more rip the Band-Aid off than Disney was. And so Secret of Nim and American Tail and all these, he was big into history and sociology. And he also believed in exposure therapy and a little bit on the harsh side. Kind of like where Jim Henson went down like the Dark Crystal and some of the dark places, the dark squirrely places, which are still safe. He would go into the dark places. But this movie dealt with rabbits and has an Animal Farm sort of vibe to it, a precursor. And these rabbits, there's this one neurodivergent bunny who is very connected to spirituality. But the story goes that the universe created all the animals. And animals lived in harmony, except for the rabbit. So the rabbit was living in harmony with his friends and had many friends. But like rabbits do, they start to be quite prolific once left to their own devices. So they took over the world. So Frisk, the godlike character, the sun, whatever, says to the rabbit, you need to check yourself, trying to check them. And said, look, your populations are too high, you are having too much power, it's like money, power, ego kind of discussions. Check you. You're becoming too prolific and taking too much power. The rabbit wouldn't listen. And he said, we are the most powerful in the world. So like narcissism a little bit. And so he said, I will not listen to you, so I will dig into a hole and forget about what you said. So the godlike character punished the rabbit and made all of the other animals have to check him. So they gave fangs and claws and turned them into predators. And so now we have predator versus prey. And to control the population, they will kill you. 80s, they're so about killing you. And so the rabbit goes through the story now. This group of rabbits jump forward to this very spiritual little divergent bunny who's very connected to his godlike story, and people won't believe him very much because he's very emotional. He's an emotionally based, empathetic based, sadness is running the show kind of bunny. But his friends eventually listen to him, and he knows that there is danger. Safety is always the first instinct we have, and so he was in tune with that. He's like, we gotta get out of here, we gotta run away, and in true 80s fashion, we go on a big adventure that takes us a long geographical distance so we can see that it takes time to learn things, and trials and tribulations along the way. And they become the heroes they're supposed to be at the end, of course. But the little spiritual bunny has a rough go and feels trapped and emotionally scared and all these things. So I apply him to a kid these days and what his divergency would be like. And I've seen kids like that. They have panic attacks, they go fetal, things like that. And sometimes we need to learn from them, because in this movie, this little bunny saved everybody. And thank goodness they listened. So Watership Down taught me a little bit about God, and that set me up nicely for the big show. Later on in middle school, as I mentioned, I lost my mom to breast cancer, and my dad was still not feeling well from his cancer and fighting his way through life as the intrepid school principal. Never anyone knowing how sick he really was. Things were a little rough, and so I had to deal in some way with my emotions and sense of spirituality and questioning why this happened. Like, why did you do this? I knew that by watching enough Disney movies that great mentors can't stick around. They're better than that. It's like the dog across the rainbow bridge. Dogs, because of their pure spirit, to me, dogs are very godlike. They have not the game making about it, but the kindness and the purity of spirit, whatever entity you want to associate it with. But dogs and animals, especially dogs, show us that joy and bravery and kindness and loyalty matter. And they don't have any money, power, or ego to worry about. They're honest, and I can trust them. So to safety, Daisy, safety, just as spiritual as anything Mr. Rogers could have taught me. So now, like I said, jump forward. And I discovered the movie Beaches. Yeah, I'm going there. Get ready. Grab your tissues, y'all. I'm going to keep it light. Don't worry. So I discovered Beaches and the power of Bette Midler. Thank you, Bette Midler, for being my stepmom fairy out there in movie world, for making me laugh in all of your hilarious films like Big Business and Hocus Pocus and all that cool stuff. Love you. Your spirit is phenomenal. I learned so much from you. I even had Bette Midler birthday cakes. I was obsessed for a little while. A rabbit hole. But in Beaches, I've seen that movie more times than I can imagine. I'm sure I still have it memorized, but I haven't watched it in a long time. But then I watched it over and over again. Obviously, we deal with the topic of best friends and loss and power and how different lives go in different directions, and creative people have different worlds that they see, different worldviews, different lenses. It just keeps building. My jump forward with the spirituality of Beaches was about the purity of friendship and the lasting need for friends, because look to the helpers. Your helpers are your friends. And at that time, that made me have comfort. It gave me a safe space. And so I could cry it out or whatever I needed to do, which I didn't really cry much. But The Wind Beneath My Wings was that song that triggered everybody. Oh, that whole scene. Ouch. It's like Bright Eyes in Watership Down. Oh, the feels. Empathy / sadness is just swimming around in movie Netflix land. And in Beaches, that scene is powerful. Really Disney level, hardcore, all the feels. But you knew it wasn't the end of the movie. There was still more to come. And that later on, the daughter ends up living with Bette Midler's character. And actually there's a Beaches 2 book where apparently in the book they take her ashes, her friend's ashes, Elizabeth Hershey's ashes, and they go on an airplane, and she is going to disperse the ashes somewhere, I can't remember where. Of course, as you might expect, that she screws it up because of all of her stress, and ashes go flying all over the plane, and she had to get the plane cleaned, and yada, off we go. So a little bit of humor really helps to make us feel better. It's a hug. So humor is the hug. But I want to thank those of the spiritual world. Whatever you do, keep on keeping on. It's important. Kids need spirituality. What religion you choose to subscribe to is great. I think that's fantastic. That's your family's choices. That's part of your core values. I respect that to the hilt. In my case, my dog's like good old Steve laying here right next to me, licking my nose, and Ralphie, who's finally found a nice place to be and seems quite happy as well. They teach me things all the time and remind me that there is a much higher power out there that created such a beautiful, angelic creature on Earth that I can play with every day. And also gives me all the sensory love I could ever want, and a few licks on the nose. So once again, back to the origins. Sunday, the day of rest. I want to thank Mr. Rogers and Daisy, who's somewhere up there with Mufasa and all of those great teachers like Mr. Rogers. They're up there. Those are my angels in my metaverse, and they're pretty incredible. Maybe someday I can pick your brain and we can noodle together in the great spiritual noodler that is life. Enjoy your Sunday, everybody. And I'm going to take a break from making these podcasts for a couple of days and let this be where it is. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thanks, Daisy. Great spiritual lesson. Perfect for pre-K. Enjoy your day.